Hello, welcome to law school and congratulations for starting yet again a new chapter in your life. Now, as you know, the first semester for academic year 2020 to 2021 commences on the second week of September. However, before you formally start your legal education, you must first learn how to make a case digest, which is evidently our topic in this video. Now, making a case digest is a basic and essential skill that will help you survive in the College of Law and most importantly will enable you to have a firm, clear, and better understanding of our laws and legal doctrines and how it is applied to actual cases. So unlike the conventional way of teaching, law schools apply what we call the Socratic method, where the student is basically asked questions based on reading assignments given by the professor rather than the latter conducting a lecture all throughout the meeting. So, hindi lang yung professor yung nagsasalita sa klase, pati na rin yung estudyante. The professor does not only ask the student about what is found in the legal provisions or what he or she has read in the textbook or in the case given to them. So factual issues are given to the student in which he or she must apply the correct law or legal principle or jurisprudence to the given situation. Now, what are the types of cases that will be assigned for recitation? This depends on the subject and the topic that will be discussed in class. So the professor gives you a list of cases bearing the title of the case, which contains the names of the parties thereto. So who is the plaintiff or the petitioner, who is the defendant, or who is the respondent, who is the complainant, or who is the accused. Then the title is followed by the GR number or an AM number in case of administrative cases, as well as the date of promulgation. So we now have a example. We have an example here, which is the case of Chi Ming Choi versus Court of Appeals and Gina Lao Choi. So, obviously, the petitioner is Chi Ming Choi and the respondents are the Court of Appeals and Gina Lao Choi. The GR number is 119190 and the case was promulgated on January 16, 1997. So, the name of the ponente or the Supreme Court Justice who wrote the majority opinion is also included. Now that you already have a list of cases that you must read, what you do next is you search for it on the internet. So my personal suggestion would be to type both the title of the case and the GR number or the AM number in order to ensure that you get the correct case. Or if you find it time consuming or you are in a hurry, you can simply search for the case by typing the GR number. And when you open the page, you just make sure that the GR number as shown on the web page is the same GR number and of the same date of the case that you are looking for. Kasi mayroong instances na pareho yung parties pero magkaiba pala yung GR number at ibang kaso siya. So usually, the sites that will pop up when you use the search engines on the internet are lawfil.net, se.judiciary.gov.ph, and then Chan Robles. But if you have the means, kung kaya mo naman financially, you can also use City Asia or Iskra. Now, I know that the Supreme Court has an e-library, so you can also search your cases there. All you have to do is to sign up. So you just have to go to their website. Now, there are instances that instead of giving you the GR number, you are given a SCRA number instead. So, what is a SCRA? So, SCRA stands for Supreme Court Reports Annotated and is a printed compilation of cases decided by the Supreme Court. So, you can usually find these in the library. So, before the internet was a thing, law students and lawyers search for their cases through the SCRA, which to me is challenging and a bit of a hassle considering that it is not accessible anytime, anywhere. And that it has hundreds of volumes and there's usually only one copy per volume in the library. So how do you search for a case in the SCRA? Example, you are given 75 SCRA 100. That means you look for volume 75 and the case is on page 100. So do you see this picture here? Okay, you see these numbers. These are the volume number. So what you do is, you look for volume 75, and when you already have volume 75 with you, you turn the book to page 100, and that is where you will find the case that you are looking for. Now you already know how to search for cases. What do you do next? Of course, you have to read it. If you're thinking that your professor will only give you one case, you got it all wrong. But this is also not impossible. However, when the professor gives only one case as a reading assignment, kabahan kayo. So example, when I was still in second year in the College of Law, we were given one case to read for the following meeting, which was on the next day. So we had to print it on the same night and also read it after printing kasi nga bukas siya gagamitin. And guess what? Guess how long the case was? It was about 100 pages. So, ang tagal ng gugugulin mong oras sa pagpiprint, and you have to read a 100-page case which you really have to digest, you have to comprehend and understand. Kasi tatawagin ka sa recitation for the following day. So, kapag bigyan kayo ng isang kaso, huwag kayong matuwa agad. Tignan nyo muna kung gaano kahaba. But usually, class, students in the College of Law are given at least 5 cases per topic. And some professors would also give a list of cases at the start of the semester. So, pwede kayong mag-advance reading. So, madaling salita ha, sobrang dami ng babasahin yung kaso. So, kung ngayon pa lang, iniisip yung sobrang dami niyong babasahin, kapag tinitignan nyo yung textbooks nyo and CODALS, then, I am telling you, hindi lang yan yung babasahin nyo kasi kasama dyan yung napakaraming kaso. Now, how do you finish reading tons of cases for different subjects overnight or in just a few days? How will you be able to comprehend and master it all? How will you prepare for recitations? So this is where making a case digest comes into play. If you think that making a case digest is only for purposes of surviving your daily ordeal in class, also known as recitations, so you are mistaken. Making a case digest is an essential part of your legal studies because, like I said earlier, it will enable you to have a better understanding for laws, particularly case law. So it will also help you improve your competence and capability in law school and will likewise help you build your confidence. So isipin mo, gets na gets mo yung kaso, gamay na gamay mo from start to end, and you even memorized by heart the legal doctrines cited by the Supreme Court. Most likely, you will have a good recitation and your professor will be impressed. But if you come to class not really understanding the cases you read, either because you didn't read the full text very well or your case digest is of bad quality, ano na lang ang mangyayari sa'yo? Chances are, you will have a bad recitation and you will be given a 5 for it. So, bagsak ka dyan. The availability of case digest does not mean that you can dispense with reading the full text. So, baka yun ang iniisip nyo ha, na just because may available na case digest, okay, I'll just dispense with the full text. No, because you cannot appreciate how the case was decided by the Supreme Court. You will not really understand the legal principles behind the Supreme Court's decision if you will not read the full text. Also, you will not be able to make a good case digest if aasa ka lang din sa isa pang case digest of the case that you are supposed to digest. Okay? So, why am I telling you this? Kasi, the first step in making a case digest is to read the full text. And that is why, before you continue with this video, I want you to look for the case of Chi-Ming Choi versus Court of Appeals and Gina Lau Choi, GR number 119190, January 16, 1997. So please read the full text first before you continue with this video. Assuming that you're already done with the full text of the case I have given you earlier, and I really hope you did, we now move on to the kinds of digests that are required in law school. There are three kinds. So one is your personal case digest, then second is group case digest, and third is a compilation of digests. So schools in Manila usually require all three. However, in our school, it is usually just the first two kinds that are required in class. So let's discuss each. Your first type is the personal case digest or case digest for classroom use, and this is what the students use in preparation for their everyday class and or for consumption during class hours. This helps you remember what you have read and studied. So ito yung ginagawa nyo sa library, ito yung ginagawa nyo sa bahay, which you take with you to the classroom. Then you have your group digest. So parang ang gandang pakinggan kasi group, no? So, what happens in this kind of digest is the professor assigns a bulk of cases. And this so many that it is better to spread out the volume of the work in order to effectively lighten the workload of each student. So, di ba parang, wow, ang saya! Yung maraming cases, hati-hatiin nyo na lang, konti na lang problema nyo. However, this kind of digest has downsides to it. Why? Because the reliability of this kind of digest is not ensured. Also, it is difficult to study case digests made by others since you have a different appreciation of cases. So, kahit na may kanya-kanya kayong assignment ng cases, you're not sure if your classmates will really work on their digest or if they will really do a good job in making the case digest. So, what if ginamit mo yung bad quality na case digest nila and you got called for recitation for that case na ginawa nila ng digest, tapos mali pala yung pagkaka-digest, di ba? Papalpak ka sa recitation. You cannot tell your professor na, I'm so sorry, attorney, but the case digest I used was of bad quality. Walang pakialam yung teacher niyo dyan. So, even if group digest sounds great, mas okay pa rin na gumawa ka ng sarili mong case digest. So, better pa rin if personal case digest ang gamitin mo. Then, last but not the least is the compilation of digest. So, the professor usually gives a list of cases that you should digest at the beginning of the semester, which you will have to submit later on. So, the professor gives you a list of so many cases that you have to digest in handwritten form. So, pag gawaan ng case digest, hindi po uso yung pag-encode. You have to write everything. Why? Because in the bar, you answer essay type questions and you have to write your answers on a test booklet. Hindi po tayo nag-encode. So, this is a way of your professors in compelling you to practice your handwriting and also to improve your endurance when it comes to writing. Kasi sa bar, you write for 8 hours, a maximum of 8 hours every Sunday of the bar. Okay? So, kasi nga, sobrang dami ng cases na ibibigay sa type of digest na ito, you cannot do this every night kasi nga, ang dami-dami. So, what you do is, you have to spread out the work throughout the semester. Hindi mo kakayanin gawin to overnight. So, bawal mag-procrastinate dito. So, when you are given the list by your professor, you have to work on it right away. And then, we go to the 3 guiding principles in making a case digest. So, number 1 is you start with the question why. Okay? So, you ask yourself, why did the professor give this specific case as a reading assignment? The answer to that is usually found in your syllabus. So, depende yan kung ano yung topic ang i-discuss for a particular subject. Say, for example, the very famous case of Chi Ming Choi versus Court of Appeals and Gina Lau Choi. Binibigay ito lagi sa persons and family relations. And the topic falls under Article 36, tackling on psychological incapacity. So now you know that the case is under psychological incapacity, di ba? You will know what to find in the case and what are the facts and the legal principles that you must take note of. So bear in mind that there are at least 2 to 3 issues in a case. You can easily spot these because they are identified by Roman numerals. So some issues may be relevant to the topic while others fall under a different subject matter. So pag alam mo kung bakit inassign yung case, malalaman mo yung facts and issues ng kaso na pagtutuunan mo ng pansin. Then next is, you go for the spoilers, which means that you read the end of the case first or its dispositive portion. So why do you do this? Why should you know if the case was dismissed, was the petition granted, was the accused acquitted, or was there a conviction before you start reading the case from the very top? So the reason behind this or the purpose of this is in order for you to know or to know what important pieces of legal doctrines laid down by the Supreme Court you are going to find in that full text of the case. So ako, when I was still a student, I usually read the dispositive portion if I am in a hurry and the case is lengthy. So yun yung ginagawa ko. So this is great kasi if I already know how if I already know the decision of the Supreme Court, pag sinimulan ko ng basahin yung case from the very beginning, I would then know what facts to take note of, what facts to look for, and kung ano yung dapat kong pagtuunan ng pansin sa kaso. Kasi when you read the dispositive portion, mapapatanong ka kung ano yung mga facts which led to the filing of that particular case. And kung bakit nagdesisyon ng court for or against the petitioner or the appellant or the appellee. So, mga ganun. Para mag-guide ka lang actually. That is the reason why you should first go for the spoilers. And then, third is, your digest must be complete and concise. And of course, you must be confident with it. So, you make case digest para mas konti na lang yung kailangan yung balikan ulit when you prepare for class. You have to keep your digest short but comprehensive. So, you should note that you should not omit big chunks of important facts in the ruling. So again, this comes with a lot of practice and effort. It will be hard at first, but you'll eventually get used to it. Of course, you have to be confident with your digest also. Kasi nga, gumagawa ka ng case digest para matulungan kang aralin ng mabuti yung mga dapat yung aralin in class. So, if you're not confident with your digest, do you think you will use it? Diba? Hindi, right? So, again, those are the 3 general principles you have to bear in mind. So, ask yourself why. You go for the spoilers, and your digest must be complete and concise, and you must be confident with it. So, punta na tayo sa kung paano gawin ang case digest. Number 1, like I always say, read the full text of the case. There is no shortcut to this. You really have to read it from start to end. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand the case and you will fail to effectively make a good case digest thereof. Number 2, you write down or highlight the facts of the case. So, usually yung ginagawa natin, di ba, when we search for cases, we print it. So, you can highlight the facts and the issues, pati yung ruling na gagamitin mo, if you have your own copy. So, you could also place markings on those facts, issues, and ruling that you will be using. But, if you don't have your own copy, all you have is a soft copy or you are reading from the SCRA, then you jot down those facts, issues, and ruling that you will be including in your digest. So, however, before you jot down those parts that you must first consider the subject matter of the topic, which is the area of law or subject or topic that the case is specifically assigned to. That is why previously I told you that before you read a case, you must first ask yourself the question why. It is imperative that you first learn the topic or subject matter because this will serve as your guide in picking out or choosing material or relevant facts, issues, and ruling. Going back to the case of Chiming Choi, di ba, that case is about psychological incapacity. So here, you need not include facts that are irrelevant to the topic, such as where they got married. So, hindi naman material sa case that they got married in Manila Cathedral or that the reception was in Makati. Walang bearing yun sa psychological incapacity. But, you have to include that on their first night as husband and wife, they did not engage in sex. Relevant din yung fact na even during their honeymoon, no lovemaking occurred between the couple and that Chiming Choi did not make love to his wife, and even after a year of marriage, the wife was still a virgin. So you can also include the fact that upon examination, Chiming Choi's sex organ was found out to be just 2 inches and 5 centimeters kasi kasama to sa mga allegation ng parties. So, in the second step you trim down the case. So, while you read, you trim down the case. Pipiliin mo kung ano lang yung isasama mo sa case digest mo. Now, again, as to the facts, like our previous example, not all dates and circumstances are to be included. Only those that are necessary in the overall appreciation of the case shall be included in your case digest. So, as to the issue or issues naman, this must be clear and direct to the point as much as possible. And when it comes to the ruling, only those rulings of the Supreme Court relevant to the topic or subject matter should be included. So example, sa case ni Chiming Choi, the court said, one of the essential marital obligations under the family code is to procreate children based on the universal principle that procreation of children through sexual cooperation is the basic end of marriage. Constant non-fulfillment of this obligation will finally destroy the integrity or wholeness of the marriage. In the case at bar, the senseless and protracted refusal of one of the parties to fulfill the above marital obligation is equivalent to psychological incapacity. So, di ba, pansin nyo, the ruling talks about psychological incapacity. Ang topic natin, di ba, is psychological incapacity. And the issue is about psychological incapacity. So, the ruling that you will include in your case digest should be about psychological incapacity. Number 3, you start writing your digest. So, you start with the title of the case, citation, date, ponente, or the Supreme Court Justice who wrote the majority opinion. Actually, hindi naman strict yung pagfa-follow nito. Pwede namang yung pangalan lang ng parties and GR number and the date. There is no need to write down the name of the ponente. But then, maybe there are some professors who will ask you who wrote the majority opinion. So, it is much safer if kumpletuhin mo na lang lahat. Then, after number 3, you make a thesis statement, which is step number 4. So, how do you make a thesis statement? When you make a thesis statement, you answer 4 questions. So, A, who filed the case? B, against whom was the case filed? C, what is the action filed? And D, what reliefs are sought? So, we have an example of a thesis statement. Gina Lau Choi filed a petition for annulment of marriage against Chiming Choi on the ground of psychological incapacity. So, nasagutan ba yung 4 na tanong? Yes. Who filed the case? Gina Lau Choi. B. Against whom the case was filed? Chiming Choi. What is the action filed? A petition for annulment of marriage. So, what reliefs are sought? It is the annulment of marriage. So, yan lang yung gagawin nyo sa thesis statement. So, why do you have to make one? So, you make a thesis statement in order for you to immediately recall what the case is about. So, hindi mo na kailangang balikan lahat ng facts. Sa thesis statement pa lang, maalala mo na kung tungkol saan yung kaso na binasa mo. Okay? Then, we go to number 5, where you basically just divide your digest into 3 parts: the facts, issues, and ruling. So, we have a picture here, which is an example of the case digest I made for the case of Chiming Choi versus Court of Appeals and Gina Lau Choi. So, right after the thesis statement, or your facts, next to that are the issues, and then the ruling of the Supreme Court. So, ang nilagay ko dyan, petitioner Chiming Choi and respondent Gina Lau Choi married on May 22, 1988. After the wedding ceremony and the reception, the couple proceeded to the house of the petitioner's mother, where they slept together in the same room and on the same bed. However, no sexual intercourse occurred between them on their first night as a married couple. So, pwede rin i-add nyo doon na on the succeeding nights, they also slept together in the same room and in the same bed, but still, lovemaking has not occurred between them. And also, during their honeymoon, sexual intercourse also did not occur since petitioner avoided his wife by taking long walks by himself in the afternoon or sleeping in the living room. So, kayo na yung pipili ng mga facts na kailangan yung isama sa case digest nyo. So, personally, I am more comfortable using numbers instead of bullets. Okay, pero discretion nyo naman yan kung ano yung gagamitin nyo. But for me, it's either you use numbers or you use bullets rather than writing your case digest in a paragraph form. Mas okay yung hinihimay-himay mo yung pagkakasulat ng facts and sunod-sunod siya rather than writing it in paragraphs para pag may nakalimutan ka, madali mong hanapin kung anong part ng case yung nakalimutan mo. So, mas madali yung recall kapag in bullet form siya or in numbers. Basta dapat himay-himay lang, not in paragraph form. Then, we go to number 6. So, the fact should include how the case moved up in the judicial hierarchy. So, the fact should sometimes include how the case moved up in the judicial hierarchy from the lowest court until it reached the Supreme Court. So, that means from MTC are your municipal trial court, municipal circuit trial courts, metropolitan trial courts, or the regional trial court, to the Court of Appeals, or to the Supreme Court. So, now that you are still beginning your first year in law school, hindi nyo pa masyadong alam yung judicial hierarchy of courts, but you will learn that later on. So, sa example nito ni Chiming Choi, ano yung nakalagay dito sa example ko? The trial court rendered judgment declaring the marriage void on the ground of psychological incapacity. On appeal, the Court of Appeals affirmed the trial court's decision. So sometimes, your professors will ask you how the facts move up in the judicial hierarchy. But most of the time, they will not ask that. Pero para mas safe, isama nyo lang siya sa facts of the case. Now we go to number 7, which is you simply fill the issue section. Again, ulitin ko, you only include those issues which is relevant to the topic for the particular subject in which that case was given to you as a reading assignment. So, when you write this, you start with 1, or whether or not refusal of private respondent to have sexual communion with petitioner is a psychological incapacity. Or pwede mo rin dagdagan na whether or not the alleged refusal of both the petitioner and the private respondent to have sex with each other constitutes psychological incapacity of both. So, psychological incapacity pa rin yung issue na yan. Diba? So, if I remember it correctly, sa full text there are 4 issues. But we picked only those issues on the topic of psychological incapacity. Kasi nga naman, aanhin mo yung other issues. Like, for example, in that case, I know there is an issue which falls on remedial law or on your procedural law. You did not include this in your case digest for Chiming Choi because that case was given to you for a person's and family relations topic. So, hindi nyo naman matatopic doon yung issue on remedial law because that's an entirely different subject. Kaya, kailangan alam nyo kung bakit nga binigay sa inyo yung case para alam nyo kung ano yung mga issues na dapat nyong isama sa case digest ninyo. And then, last but not the least, you fill in the ruling section. Okay? So, what you place there is how the court resolved the issue, what was the reasoning behind the Supreme Court's ruling. So here, you answer each issue and lift from the full text the decision generously and in verbatim. So, di mo kailangang basahin kung ano nandiyan sa full text and i-summarize mo doon sa digest mo kung anong pagkakaintindi mo. So, you just have to copy everything. You copy it in toto. Yun na yung ruling part ng case nyo. So, dito, lang nilagay ko sa ruling. So, if a spouse, although physically capable but simply refuses to perform his or her essential marriage obligations and the refusal is senseless and constant, so Catholic marriage tribunals attribute the causes to psychological incapacity than to stubborn refusal. Senseless and protracted refusal is equivalent to psychological incapacity. Thus, the prolonged refusal of a spouse to have sexual intercourse with his or her spouse is considered a sign of psychological incapacity. So, pwede nyo rin gamitin yung ruling na nilagay ko in the previous slide, which is this. Diba? One of the essential marital obligations under the family code is to procreate children based on the universal principle that procreation of children through sexual cooperation is the basic end of marriage. Constant non-fulfillment of this obligation will finally destroy the integrity or wholeness of the marriage. In the case at bar, the senseless and protracted refusal of one of the parties to fulfill the above marital obligation is equivalent to psychological incapacity. So, nakasagot ba yung tanong natin sa issue whether or not refusal of private respondent to have sexual communion with petitioner is a psychological incapacity? Yes. So, yun. Kumpleto na yung case digest mo. You have the title of the case, you have your thesis statement, facts, issues, and rulings. So, that is how you make your case digest. So, kapag natanggap nyo na yung mga syllabus nyo in your respective subjects, then you already know what to do. You read the full text and make a case digest of it. And before you come to class, yung case digest nyo lang yung babasahin nyo. So, that's all for this video. I hope that you learned something from me and pasensya na if may mga nasaling noise, mga unnecessary noise. I really don't know how to eliminate the unnecessary noise while recording this video. Maraming tumahol na aso, maraming dumaan na sasakyan, which is one of the downsides of having to record near the highway. So, I hope to see you in the other videos or kung mag-zoom tayo for our next lessons. And good luck to you and I hope you enjoy law school. Ciao!